Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. The time is precisely 10 o'clock. This is a special meeting of our elected officials. I am calling this meeting to order. Attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. First item of business, continuity of operations, continuation, general discussion. Who would like to lead us? That was quick.
Has anybody had any problems or concerns with having people work from home or any bonuses?
Lori, please.
Commissioners, I do have no.
You just
Take that, Barry.
Sorry. I have a question to the commissioners, because I got caught up on the emails that were sent out, thank you very much, Nancy, last evening, where you're going to be working remote and your team is going to be working remote. So my one question that I do have is, what is at this point going to be so horrible for us to lock the outside doors? We've all put out that we are doing everything by appointment, and if we post big signs on the doors, I'm not sure who in this building is now open to the public that we want to have the doors open anymore.
That's an interesting question. Anybody have any thoughts?
We are somewhat open to the public HR, but that could be easily addressed by posting a notice that says call us, call our main number. In terms of tort claims, between the clerk's office and our office and the civil division, those would be some things that might come in, but we're highly encouraging people to file those through our website.
Lori?
And if I'll finish my thought process, and I've been going back and forth because I want to be proactive to a point but not overreactive. But if we set up a policy last week just for appointments only, and I have had 2 appointments that have showed up. But what I have had is people that have wandered in through the building knocking on my door to get in. And so I would rather have it at this point, because I'm watching what's happening in our community, a thought process of should we be locking it, and then when we know we have an appointment, we go down, meet that person at the door, and then escort them in, and then take them right back out of the building, instead of having the public wandering through here. And then does that then stop us from having to have our employees working remote?
Interesting. Joe, do you want to jump in here? How are you managing?
We are now providing all services by mail, by phone. We could potentially, if it was needed, schedule an appointment, but all of our services are easily done via email, fax, phone, mail. ITDs granted us a 90-day vehicle licensing extension, new vehicles, title work is a 30-day restriction. We are effective behind our closed door, and that door is 30 feet in from the building door.
Okay.
So I guess my concern would be anytime we're having public meetings, it has to be open to the public. So I'm not sure how to do that. Yeah, we're trying to live stream everything, but it still doesn't give due process. So I'm not sure. I mean, that's kind of a Barry question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you want to jump in here, Barry?
Are you having all your meetings here,
Well, yeah,
in this room, I mean?
Yes.
generally.
So you may want to.
They're going to be
provide-
open the border next week.
Next week, right.
Yeah.
They don't have to.
Right. We haven't, it's not official yet because we have till Friday, but.
But go ahead, Barry.
Well, I think that if you continue to have meetings here, you could provide access and even put out on your notices directions for people if they want to attend. To come to this door down here, you provide them direct access into this room, and then they leave immediately after. And then there's somebody kind of monitoring that traffic.
I just don't know who that person monitoring the traffic would be. I mean, your civil people are home, half of my staff is home. I'm not sure, how that would work out physically.
Well, I know when we have evening meetings here, they literally they put painter's tape across this, so you can't go in the hall. We can talk with buildings and grounds about putting essentially a red notice over saying, employees only.
Well, and essentially, we're talking about the meetings that we host. Yeah, Lori.
Commissioners, I guess during your public meetings, are you not going to have your staff here to be there? I know that you have the clerk's
Yeah,
office.
somebody will be here.
But you wouldn't be able to have somebody standing at the foyer door to see if they're here to attend?
We can do that.
Well, then we have to go switch our thing, so, and then we'll just have to look
Yeah,
into it.
we can, I mean, if we have to switch rooms, as long as we redirect somebody, if it's posted one way and we conduct it another, we're fine. As long as someone is there to, apprise them as they come in. Dina, you had your hand up?
I noticed that there was no desk deputy anymore. Was that a permanent change? And if so, then I think Lori's point is well taken. We don't have the security.
You mean on the second floor?
Yeah. There's no deputy.
Dan, can you comment, please?
It's temporary until the building's back up to full speed, and we've got a deputy that's going to be assigned permanently to this job once we're back to normal operation. But Mike Douglas is out now. Mark Rankin doesn't want to be here because of his potential to be exposed to coronavirus, and it's a temporary thing, but not until we get back up to speed or we can have a deputy down here.
Okay, which is probably another argument for shutting down the building. Jen, how are you guys functioning?
Well, I talked to Lori and I did talk to county assistants asking how many payments they've been receiving this last week. It was 2 yesterday, up to 6 or 7. But if we could have someone at all times able to answer the phone and by appointment only, we could let them in at the doorway, get in there. But I think we'd have to be diligent in making sure that we're accessing the phone calls that are coming in for people that have appointments in each department.
What's going on at the elections office?
Right now, we have an outside setup where people can drop off, and we have absentee application, registration, public record request forms. We've had it outside a couple days. This beginning of this week, we had it inside with a roped off area for a couple days, but I think we'll move it back out eventually. And we haven't had any issues, and we have a sign at the door if people can knock and call, but people have been very respectful and understanding of the policies right now.
Okay. Sylvia, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm good.
You're good.
I want to talk about a law that's going into effect April 1st after this discussion for continuing
Oh.
operations.
Is there anyone who feels, let me put it a little differently, is there anyone who feels that we should not shut the building down? That we should keep it open as though business as usual?
I feel that way right now just because I think it just sends a message that all these people are losing their jobs. We're still getting paid, we're still at work, but yet we're not serving the public. So that's just kind of where I'm at right now. I like being appointments only. A lot of these are great suggestions and stuff, but just to lock the doors outright, I still have an issue with that. And I just don't know that we have personnel to stand around and to direct people all day. So I think this is just a not easy situation, and I think whatever we do, we're going to be criticized for it.
Dr. Keene?
I think that we need to take this into account as to where we are. We're not a New York City with its doubling every 3 days. We have 8 as of last night. That's 5 people per 100,000. And it is the people's building. We're locking the appropriate doors. We're asking for appointments. I think we're social distancing. We're doing everything that we can. I think locking the building is an overreach.
Chris?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially in a time like this when people are very concerned about what's happening, that there be people available at the county level to answer those questions. I know we have all kinds of plans in place, which is wonderful, but the average person needs a number they can call, or something like, I gotta have my license plate. No, you don't. You have an extra X number of days now. Oh, okay, problem solved. And I do that with my number. My phone has, I would say, 4 or 5 times the normal number of calls in a day from residents of the county. And they're relatively easy to answer. But if you don't answer them somehow, whether it's in person or on the phone, that's when people get a little bit, I want to say panicky, but concerned. So there's a balance. And we need to be very concerned, but without inciting panic.
And once again, the unified message from EOC Panhandle Health, if you have underlying health conditions, you need to isolate. If you are showing any symptoms of illness, you need to isolate. So it's hard for me to just say, okay, whatever percentage of our population that's healthy, we're not going to serve you. So like I said, it's just, there's no easy answer here. But at this point, absent the governor, doing something, then I think we need to be open right now, which, is not popular.
Does the governor have a press conference this morning?
I think at 12:30 our time, correct?
Yes.
Is he expected to make an announcement that might be out of whatever is considered ordinary for COVID? Okay. I heard that he was going to announce something that might be another measure. I don't know. I would say that we not make a decision right now. Let's see what the governor has to say later today, and then we can go from there, at least as a board. Make sense?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else on this topic? Good idea, though, Lori. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Under Sheriff Matos and I were discussing item earlier. Did you want to talk about that?
Nancy told me that there are nurses that are retired that are wanting to come back into the workforce to help out with the coronavirus situation. And we have shut down fingerprinting, and the question was, well, how are they going to get fingerprinted? Because they got to be fingerprinted to come back to work. And with that in mind, this is for public, this is an essential thing. This is for the public health. And what we would do is we would accommodate that, but we need to do it by appointment. And that would be my request, if by whatever mechanism it's coming to you, we'll set it up and we'll do it by appointment. And needless to say, if anybody's got a cough or a sneeze or whatever, we're just going to tell them don't show up because we're not going to do it.
Understood.
Sylvia, did you?
Anything else? Sylvia, please.
I would like to go ahead and review with the elected officials and the board the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Last week I mentioned there was legislation being discussed and modified, and it did get signed by President Trump. It goes into effect April 1st, it looks like. There were 2 dates floating around, either April 1st or April 2nd, but we're going to go with the April 1st date. That's what's on the Department of Labor website. But pretty much it's kind of a twofold thing. There's emergency paid sick leave, where you pay an individual 80 hours of paid leave for 6 reasons. They range from a quarantine or isolation, which is mandated or required by a healthcare provider or the federal, state, or local entity. The employee is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking a medical diagnosis. So those top 3 factors, you pay 100% of their salary for 80 hours, okay? And then there's 3 other reasons, and those are paid at 2/3 of the employee's pay for 80 hours. And that includes caring for an individual who is subject to a quarantine or isolation order. The employee is caring for a son or daughter whose school or place of care has been closed, or child care is unavailable because of the pandemic we're in, or the employee is experiencing any other substantially similar condition specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So we're trying to find out what those might be. We don't see, I haven't seen anything on the Department of Labor's website yet, but we'll have to address those on an individual basis. So for the first 80 hours, the last 3 indicators would be paid 2/3 of their pay. Now where this gets, where it switches now into like FMLA, we're calling it FMLA plus related to COVID-19. The factor dealing with caring for a son or daughter whose school or place of care has been closed, those individuals get an additional 10 weeks of paid leave at 2/3 of their pay. So FMLA also would still apply in many of these situations, but this is related to how people are paid during this pandemic, and this stays in effect through the end of December of this year. So Darren, I believe he's on the line, and Cecilia and I are drafting policy based on what we're finding through the Department of Labor and through legal counsel. So we will need to have this reviewed by the board and approved to be able to start this April 1st.
Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you. So the interesting thing with FMLA, you have to work 12 months or 1,280 hours, 60 hours. But with this, the 80 hours paid, you're eligible if you've been with us one day for the emergency paid sick leave, which is the 80 hours. For the additional FMLA kind of leave, you have to only be employed with us for 30 days. Thank you, great point.
Forget one of the-
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say this is a personal thing, but it's interesting. I had a little scratchy throat a week ago Monday, and my wife said, "Hey, your head's a little warm." So I called my doctor, and he said, "Well, stay home, I'll order a test." The next day I went in to Kootenai for a test. I drove up, there was one car in front of me. They gave me the test, and I was out. The whole thing took less than 6 minutes. And yesterday, I got my test results back, negative, and that's good. But it was not, the thing is, you can't go in and get a test. You gotta have a medical professional order one.
Order the test.
And it's very simple. They're set up to do this. Kootenai takes a fax, boom, done. She came out and said, "Brooks?" And I go, "Yep." She goes, "Okay, we got your doctor's orders." Pop, pop. That's it. I was gone. So it's not bad, but you just can't drive up into Kootenai and say, I want a COVID-19 or coronavirus test. It won't happen. So talk to your.
How long did it take, how long did it take for the results?
4 business days.
Okay.
You know, which, they're cutting that down real quick. I heard the other day 45 minutes they've got a test that will give results. So that's going to get better and better.
So Sylvia, would you go through those 3 items real quick, once again?
The various factors.
Yes.
So the first one, the employee is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order. The employee has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to concerns related to the pandemic. And the third one was the employee is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking a medical diagnosis. Then the fourth one, so those 3 get 100%.
Those 3 get 100%, okay.
And it's based on their work schedule, so a part-time employee, you've got to do some averaging, and there's
Okay.
there's guidance there on how you calculate it. And payroll's been involved and is aware of the law. That's going to be coming into effect. And then caring for an individual who's subject to a quarantine. And the interesting thing about an individual is it's very specific in FMLA. In this factor, it isn't. So it's pretty broad right now, and we're trying to just get guidance every day. We'll get guidance from the Department of Labor on what that means. And also caring for a son or a daughter whose school or place of care has been closed, including your child care provider. And then those conditions that are defined by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. The last, those those last 3 that I described get 2/3 of their pay, 80 hours. The only one that gets additional 10 weeks of pay is the child care, caring for your child. And that's at 2/3 of your pay.
Got it. Any other questions for, but Sylvia, is this by executive order, or did Congress pass it?
President Trump signed it into law on the 18th, I believe.
So it was passed by Congress? Okay.
Yeah. Darren's on the line. I don't know if he wants to add anything.
Darren, did you want to add anything to the discussion?
No, Sylvia covered everything.
Good job. Okay, thank you.
That,
Okay, so anything further on continuity of operations? Okay, moving on. Second and final item. Fiscal year 21 compensation, prosecutor's office potential action item. Who wants to lead us here?
Sylvia.
Sylvia will lead us, okay. Sorry.
So thank you. It's good to have everybody here and healthy. Love the social distancing. This is public health at its best, for sure. So at the December 18th elected officials meeting, the Board of County Commissioners gave some directives to the HR team and then the compensation team to work on a fiscal 21 compensation strategy. So the purpose of today is to present that information to you. You all had received the PowerPoint for last week, and also there's handouts for you again this week. So hopefully that's helpful. And I just wanted to let you know who the comp team is, and it's Dorothy Cross, Nancy Pluff, Dina Darrow, and Michelle. So it takes a village to make this happen, and I'm very grateful to have them working, all of us working together to continue what we started last year. All right. So compensation philosophy based on Policy 120 takes a total rewards approach, and that ties in a competitive compensation plan so that we can recruit and retain qualified staff, and also competitive benefits, your health, your EAP, those type of things, your dental, and a work-life balance. And work-life balance is being demonstrated right now with our flexibility and allowing people to work from home, flexible schedules, those type of things. So we kept that in mind as we're developing our strategies for fiscal year 21. The plan directives from the Board of County Commissioners included wage study continuation adjustments, looking at cost of living indexes and presenting some of those to you for decision making, and to develop a step and grade system for the general pay plan based on time and position. And also there was discussion about one-time bonuses, and as part of this whole compensation project that started last year was that we need to update our job descriptions, and that's in process. There are 3 COLA indexes, and we're going to give you some definitions, and you received a handout. And Michelle is going to be presenting that information to us. You want to come up?
Sure. So, as you all know, there's multiple indices that we could use in doing this, but we elected to go over the 2 that you see up there, the CPI-U and the CPI-W. One thing that, well, the difference between the W and the U is that, well, first let me back up even and explain what the CPI is, but it looks at the inflation that is taking place throughout a period of time. And the CPI also looks at how much it costs to buy a certain basket of goods or services in that time period. So the difference between the W and the U is looking at all expenses that you're going to be paying for all people. That's inclusive of all people, that whether you're working or not. So it could be retirees or unemployed. The W is looking only at hourly wages. So, and, you know, kind of along the same lines, but it's narrowed down to just looking at hourly wages. So we also are looking at both the U as a US city average, which is across the whole nation, as opposed to looking at just the mountain region. And we chose the mountain region simply because we, as Idaho, line up more with the mountain than we do Pacific. Pacific captures everybody along the West Coast. And we didn't feel that Seattle or California would really play into what's taking place within our region. We would be more in line with like Idaho, with Montana and some of the other surrounding cities. I don't remember what we had. Yeah, Arizona, Colorado, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. So I think, you know, just looking at it, we would align closer to them than we would with the Pacific Coast. Also, one of the things that I want to point out, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics also looks at what's called the Employment Cost Index. And this is just kind of for you to think about as well, but they break this down between civilian workers, private industry workers, as well as state and local government. And what it does is it looks at the wages and total compensation that employees receive and track how much wages change in that time frame. And in 2019, there was a 2.9% in that 12-month period that wages increased. And that's also compensation for like benefits as well. That's part of the total package. So when we don't increase the benefit for, say, medical, you know, what employees are paying, but we only increase a portion of the wage, we're not in line with what's happening across the industry. So I just want to make sure that you think about that when you're discussing wages. One of the other things too was when you only tie it to the CPI, you're only increasing wages to cover your purchases, basically. You're not getting ahead. You're not able to make savings, you know, do anything. You're not able to take care of, you know, any additional expenses that you may have come through. You're only factoring in what's happening with the inflation. So, any questions on that? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to break it down to all the directives that the board gave us to work on. So the first thing we did is work on the fiscal year 20 wage study continuation. So in that, we were looking at addressing those employees who got capped at 5% that should have went further into the pay scale than they were granted for fiscal year 20. We looked at salary ranges being modified for grades 3 through 12. Those ranges had, based on the natural break of the system that we put in place, had a slight decline. So we heard a lot of information from our directors and our department heads that said, can we look at that and restore it as close as possible? So we've done some projections on what that would look like. In our pay system, our chief deputy attorneys are in the same level as our AT5 attorneys. And truly, you should be separating those. So we've created an AT6 level to distinguish from hierarchy, how those should be separated, and created a grade for them. And then we also are looking at elected officials going to market based on the fiscal year 19 data that we had, because for this year, you guys gave a 3% increase to the elected officials. So we feel like we just need to bring that forward and have you look at that as well. The other thing we did is then propose our 14 step and grade system. So there's 14 steps for each of our grades for the general pay plan, the attorneys, and our chief deputies. And so the way we did that, so that first arrow top line, from minimum to market, it'll take 6 years. That was established when we implemented our new pay plan this year, that we consider market at 6 years. And so what that means is there's a 4% spread between each of the steps. And that falls in line with industry standards in terms of you move people from minimum to market a lot quicker than you go from market to maximum. So then when we talk about then your next 8 years, our step spread is 2.1% per step. And then it would take you another 8 years to go from market to maximum.
Okay.
Okay, and that's kind of falls in line with industry standard. Okay, so we're going to give you some projections now, basically to wage study continuation projections. Employees capped at 5%. There were a total of 33 individuals who were capped. No, sorry, 24 employees who were capped at 5%. That would be addressing them first. So where should they have been based on how we did our analysis last year? That total is $81,412, okay? To adjust the salary grades 3 through 12, there were 33 employees that would be impacted by that, and that is just taking them to the new minimum. Any adjustments, we need to make sure that at least with this new range that we were proposing, that we at least took them to the new minimum at this point. The chief deputy attorney level, there was no additional cost because everybody was above minimum, so that had no cost impact. The projected total for wage continuation studies without the elected officials is about $107,000. Then bringing the elected officials to market is $147,000 with a projected total of $254,640. Okay. All right. So then we're now looking at the COLA factors, and we took into consideration the 3 that Michelle discussed that we had selected that really were a better representation of what's going on in Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County. So what you have before you is under our current salaries, so if you took everyone's salary today of what we're making and applied a COLA index, and the COLA indexes vary anywhere from 1.8% to 2.6% based on those different factors, the index used for it, okay? Now, these cost of living adjustments were calculated. We first instituted the wage adjustments from fiscal year 20, that cleanup process we wanted to get done, that we had talked about a lot last year. That's factored into this cost. So just under our current pay plans, just looking at what we have a snapshot today, if you did the CPIU US City, it's 1.8% COLA index, okay, for $735,000, almost $736,000. If you take the COLA only CPIU Mountain, it's 2.6% is the rate that we applied to that projection. It's $1,062,000. And then if you take the COLA only CPIW, it's 2.5%, and that's $1,021,000. And that's just looking at COLA by itself with the way our salaries are today. Okay. All right, and then here are the cost of living adjustments for our elected officials. If you just look at it from the perspective again of what your current salaries are, based on the very indexes, you see those vary anywhere from $12,875 to our high of $18,600. And then if you put the elected officials at market, that changes slightly. Okay. So on this slide, what we have for you is looking at the step and grade system based on time and position, and we're projecting costs anywhere from not giving a COLA to giving the various indexes we have for you presented today. So if you do a step and grade system based on time and position, And what I mean by that is, we have a 14-step plan that we proposed, and 14-year employee in this initial projection would go to step 14. So they would be placed at max for their grade, okay? Barring, we don't have any indicators that say they shouldn't be there, okay? We're assuming all's great and they should be at that step 14. Or an 8-year employee would be placed at step 8, a 3-year employee at step 3, okay? So in that, we have the several scenarios that we have for you, anywhere from a 0%, no COLA, to all the various COLAs. So those costs vary anywhere from almost $2 million to $2,869,000, based on the COLA that you select. And again, this is based on time and position of where our employees are. Okay, so some of the guidance that the team is needing, hopefully we might be ready to make some decisions. If not, we'll go back to the drawing board and do some initial analysis for you. And I do want to say, in our projections, we haven't done any rounding, just like last year, when if an employee was at 0.99, we did that same thing now. We could round up, just to make sure they've got, because those were some of the issues we had experienced last year. The other thing that isn't factored in this is looking at those employees who are maxed. What should we do with them? Should they, just like for fiscal year 20, should we give them a one-time bonus? Because even with the step and grade system that we've proposed, we still have people that are going to be at max. So what do we want to do with that? And then, I think that was it. Okay. Barry?
Can you go back one slide?
Yes.
In that far left column, there's no COLA. Some people are getting increases, but am I correct that some people would get no increase?
Yes, thank you. That was my other thing. Yes, that would be, some people wouldn't get an increase because they would already be at their max, potentially? No?
No, everybody who, for that, the way the calculations work is that if they are currently making that step or just under that step, they would go to
They
the
move to
next
the next.
step.
Yes.
So everybody would get an increase, or for the sworn people, they would move through their matrix. So everybody would get an increase,
Yes.
except for the people at
At
max.
max, yes. And some of the increases could be potentially, if we didn't do where you currently are, plus one step, their increase would be insignificant. So we need to address that same scenario we did last year. Do we want to make sure across the board everyone at least gets a 2 or 3% increase?
And that's
So-
a really good point, because some of the calculations move them to the next available step based on their current salary. That could have been $50 more.
Yeah.
And that is the max of their raise, because they're going to a step. And so there is no minimum calculated in there.
Barry?
Yeah, Barry.
The people who were capped at 5% this last year, is it even possible that they could be currently where they should be in step and grade? In other words, they would deserve an additional increase based on even the adjustments that we're talking about. See what I'm talking about? Somebody who's making high up, and you look at their years of service, and they're actually where they should be for next fiscal year. You know, if that scenario is even,
We
Presents
don't think
itself
we
at
don't
all.
have
I don't think
anyone.
there was anybody in that
Yeah.
Okay.
scenario.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
everybody, because of their length of service,
Would have moved a lot
would have
further.
moved, yes.
Yeah.
We do have a couple that didn't need the 5% though. So because of their length of service.
Right, there were, in some scenarios, they were just slightly shy of where they should have gone, and, you know, it's very minuscule where they, if we would have taken and rounded up, they would have ended up where they needed to be.
Go ahead.
But I think that was more in the sworn officer matrix than our regular general pay plan.
Go ahead, Barry.
My memory, my memory's right, we've had some individuals hired outside the pay plan. And I guess I'm just wondering if any of them would fit into the category of the question I just asked a minute ago. You know, they were hired even above range. So it seems to me in that scenario, they would be maxed out, right?
It's the way that the calculations work and the way that we decided to do the formula is for the people who were hired like at 95% on their very first year, obviously they would be at a higher step than step one. So we gave them the next step, just like we did to everybody else.
It's not really my question though. So let me give you a scenario where somebody's been here for 7 years, but they were hired at above the range or at the very top of the range of their salary, of the salary range. In other words, they may be making more than they should under the current pay plan based on years of time with the county. Do any of those scenarios exist?
We have one person who is making more than their grade, but that's only one person. The other people, we were able to find a step. It might not be a step reflective of how many years of service they have, but they fit within the pay grades, or they moved to max. But we didn't have anybody who, I don't remember seeing anybody who was hired at max of their pay grade.
No.
And had to find a place to move them. I don't think we had any of those scenarios.
They may have been hired at market or slightly above.
But that still gives you
But
8
that
steps
still,
after that.
gave you room to grow. And in this first round of just projections for all of you, we didn't put those constraints on it. We looked at it one time in position, should you be at year 8, or if your salary was somewhere in between, say, a 3 and 4, even though you're a year 1 employee, we took you to that next step in this analysis.
And it's important to remember last year, we didn't put people on a pay grade system that moved them to where they should have been based on their length of service. We moved them towards market. If they were already making more than market, we gave them 2%. So we didn't move anybody to those 8 years after market.
And we didn't want to penalize anyone who we practice our comp policy 120 and have brought them in based on their experience at 95% of market or whatever that may be. We still want to make sure that there's continued progression in our pay plan. Does that catch your question?
Steve, please.
Just a backup question to understand, why do we multiply the cost of living adjustment against the gross wages and not in that?
I'm sorry.
What-
go ahead.
I can't hear you, Steve.
Because there's a number of factors that play into
What
that.
was his
Michelle, can you
please.
restate the question?
Yes, he's asking why we don't apply the cost of living adjustment to the net wages as opposed to gross wages.
Okay.
Gross wages are not going to be impacted by things like taxes, and your taxes could be completely different than mine, because you are supporting more people, so you're having a greater withholding. Or you could have other benefits withheld, you could be paying into any of the voluntary stuff. So if I were to base that on that particular amount, it's going to skew it for everybody. I mean, I get what you're saying in that regard. You think, I need to give it to them at that percentage, right? I mean, I see where you're going with it, and I guess you could argue both ways, but that's the reason we base it on compensation at the gross level.
Well, just I'm thinking out loud here, conceptually, when you were talking about the cost of living,
And
the
it's
cost
gonna
of
be based on
living
that.
is based on your net pay and your expenditures as a result of that.
It's also important when you, along those same lines as what I was mentioning before, you've got to look at it as a total compensation package as well. So if you're going to do this, and this is, I think, a trap that everybody fell into last year, they increased the medical amount that we had to pay as employees, but only increased the wages a certain amount. And that was what Sylvia had brought up in one of the presentations as well, is we were 6% behind, right?
But that's a different conversation than cost of living adjustments.
But that's part of that UCI index, which ties into your cost of living as well. You've got to look at total compensation when you're factoring these numbers in. Because that will also adjust for what's being withheld as far as your wages, for when you're, paying into your, your medical and else.
So in essence, what you're saying, Michelle, I think, is that we don't control the net because people have different deductions depending on their priorities. So the only way you can really legitimately do it is off the gross. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
All right, so we're almost to the end. Some decisions or guidance from the board is what we're looking for and what you'd like for the team to do next. And one of them would be to select a COLA index. And then select the compensation plan structure, which we presented a lot to you. So the COLA indexes were the 3 different varying factors. Under the select your compensation plan structure would be 1, we do the wage study adjustments. That was the cap where people were capped and just the cleanup, a continuation of what we had started and for fiscal year 20. Do we do COLA only to all plans at this point, leave with the salaries as they are now? Do you want to implement a step and grade system and of course maintaining your sworn officer matrix? That's always, I should have implied that along the way that stayed as it was. Do you want to do step and grade and the sworn matrix plus COLA? And then what decisions around the elected officials' salaries? Sorry, have to throw that in. And then we implement.
There's one more
Yeah,
decision,
Nancy, go ahead.
is that you want to have a minimum increase for those formulas. That's not listed there, but.
For who? I'm sorry?
A minimum increase for the people who, if it was taken to a step, only got $50. Do you want to have a minimum increase of a certain
Understood.
percentage?
Yes, and then are we giving one-time bonuses to those who are capped?
Okay.
So,
And why do we have to make the decision today?
if you want us to analyze it a little differently or whatever, just whenever you're ready, so then we can give Dina some budget numbers, would be great. But again, it's at your discretion.
I think I know where you're headed, and I think I agree. There's a lot of,
Which is where?
I think there's a lot of information presented. I'm not prepared to make a decision
Not
today.
Not at all.
And this is fantastic. You guys did a beautiful job.
Good job.
But it's a lot of information. If you, even something as simple as which COLA do I prefer, I need to think about that. Okay, and that's why I think I'd like to talk with you and Michelle and whoever else, Nancy's involved, and I suspect Nancy and Bill might feel the same way, so. Yeah, Dina, please.
Just to simplify it, and just as you roll this around and start thinking about it, we did this from an incremental standpoint. So
Right.
Step 1 is finishing the pay plan. Finishing
Precisely, yeah.
That's about 200 and something else. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2 is, everybody's making X. Do you want to give a COLA, and at which CPI level do you want to give a COLA? Because whatever CPI you pick, that's going to be kind of our policy that we're going to look to. How do we
Okay.
identify ourselves, and how are we helping employees
Yep,
keep
yep.
up with that index? So then that question is, okay, do we just give a COLA where everybody's at, from a financial perspective, we're just trying to hold everybody to keep up with inflation? Or the next level is, do you look at everyone where they are now, give them the next step, and then stop? Or do you give them the next step and then apply a COLA? So that's kind of the increments from fix to COLA current.
Understood.
To step plus COLA. So those are kind of your levels at your various CPIs, and your presentation has all those numbers in it. So that kind of frames your decision.
Yep.
So if we pick one COLA this year, why does it have to continue year after year if we get information that says that's not right for our area?
It's totally up to the board.
Yeah, we really don't have to.
Fluid, the board could make that decision.
Well, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts?
Well, from hearing from everyone, COLA is critical. COLA is important. And it would be nice to have consistency among all our pay plans. or some progression, so that people know where they're gonna be over years. You know, it's based on budget appropriations, of course, but at least they can anticipate, and those are some of the things we see people are leaning for. Well, I know, you know, this is gonna happen, and this is where I should be. But there's always them unknowns of the economy or a pandemic or whatever may hit us, and you have to step back a little and just put it on a timeout temporarily. So the more structure we can put to this, that we can communicate our compensation plan philosophy and somewhat commit to the employees that you're gonna progress through the pay plan, because we have a lot of employees, and some of them are in this room, that have been here a long time, and they're not even at market. And so we don't wanna move this forward to whoever's here after we all move on, stuck with the situation that you guys have been you have fixed, and we know it needs to continue in order to not get us back to where we were.
In your professional opinion, and I'll just confine it to COLA, which one do you recommend?
One of the mountain ones, because that's representative of us, our situation
Sure.
here.
Okay, so if we look at, yeah, go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry, Nancy, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's important to remember that COLA moves the pay grades, so without a COLA, we would fall behind market again and be in the same issue we were in last year. But also, there's no mechanism in place right now for the general employees and the attorneys to move through their pay grades. The sheriff's office does have their matrix, but for the rest of the employees, there is no mechanism for them to move through their pay grades. So if you give COLAs all the time, they could conceivably be stuck at the beginning salary of their pay grade for life if you never address how they move forward.
Yeah, and they're only progressing at the cost of living,
Yes. Well, yes.
theoretically.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they never come out
Right
ahead,
now,
right.
Pay grade spans 45%, but if there's no mechanism for them to move within that pay grade, then they are always going to be at what they were hired at in their range. And if their range happens to move because of a COLA, that's nice, but they never move within that.
Understood, right.
So those are the two things that it's very important for you to keep in mind
Precisely.
when you decide this.
Yeah. What's also interesting is if you look at the total amount of funding, the increase that we got last year by way of taxation plus new growth came out to 2.6 million. And that was with a 3% increase, right? So if we look at what's projected here, and by the way, of the 2.6, approximately, what was it, 1.7 went to the employees. So as I'm looking through this matrix and looking ahead and thinking back to what we did, on the low end, and I'm looking at those 4 green boxes, right? Because, going back to your point, Nancy, if we just looked at COLA, that's the first 3 boxes, okay, that's people just keeping up, barely, with the cost of living. So if we switch over to people being allowed to move ahead and progress through a matrix or some sort of a salary grade plan, every one of those boxes amounts to an amount greater than what we gave out last year, which was 1.7. The lowest of the group is 1.9. Major challenge. I'm just pointing that out. I'm not drawing any conclusions yet.
Well, and I don't see any numbers on medical. And so if we're serious about not having the employees shoulder any of the medical increase, that has to be taken into effect.
So in
Count.
reference to medical, we're gonna see an increase in our medical costs because of COVID-19. One of the factors, 0.5%, maybe 1% because of that. And also, maybe 11%, could be more, could be less. But we should have numbers by Friday from Alliant that gives us initial projection so we can at least get something put in the budget. And of course, that's gonna be a moving target as we go along in terms of how that might look. Because as we get more experience and the exposure to our plan and how we're using it, could either bump it up more or hopefully decrease it, and then you can do plan design changes if needed.
Are we doing any education yet on the savings accounts?
Health savings accounts, we've been talking about it. We actually were looking at trying to roll out like 2 plans, our traditional PPO plan and maybe a health reimbursement, health savings account plan. But we're treading very lightly there because everyone is so concerned with what's going on now. We don't, as a team, want to cause undue stress on people and saying, we're eliminating the PPO and you're all on a high deductible health plan with an HSA and go forth and learn about it.
Well, I'm just wondering if we can start the education now, and then for budget talks in 2022, then offer them the opportunity.
And that is within our strategic plan, and Dorothy has already started discussions with Alliant to let's educate and let's get them all familiar with that language and what that may mean. Absolutely.
Anyone else? Yes, Steve.
Did you say you were anticipating 11%?
11 is what we saw the other day, but they are crunching the numbers as we speak to give us just kind of a visual of what that muddy crystal ball is going to look like at this point. But again, it's going to be a moving target to close to the very end when Dina needs those final numbers. But this will be an initial projection for us.
And just for the public's information, that is over $1 million. So when you talk about our full taxing authority being 2.6
Thereabouts, yeah.
thereabouts, that's already, 2/3 or whatever. So, yeah, that's, still challenges lie ahead, and luckily we'll have a little bit more leeway since the legislature didn't slit our throats, really.
And the team can look at it and give you additional analysis based on, if you didn't want time and position, you say, okay, let's implement this step and grade, and let's put them, like Nancy said, see where they are in salary in one more step, and then with that understanding that we want to give at least a 2-3% increase, whatever that may be that the board decides. We can go back to the drawing board and crunch some more numbers, but we just wanted to follow along with what was given to us in December and bring that forward. And this is a moving work in progress kind of system, and we're here for you so you can make informed decisions and say, this is what we can do.
Anyone else? Good job.
Oh, Dina.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So from a budget perspective, when would you anticipate having some guidance to the auditor for plugging in some beginning numbers?
How soon do you need it?
April 1st would be great.
That's a week.
Yeah.
I think we're in a little too much of a fluid situation right now to commit. I know that would be good. It would be good
Well,
budgeting.
you can just start by maybe plugging in the 1.8 COLA. I mean, just if you need numbers to start with,
You just want starting numbers. They can be changed.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right, yeah.
So-
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Make a commitment today or early on.
Just a
So
COLA?
just a COLA?
Just for a placeholder, and then, because there's just so many things, I mean, I'm really concerned about finishing the study, and that those people who did not move to where they need to be, those get taken care of.
Okay, so if we're just gonna, for now, if we're just gonna plug in COLA, which one are you thinking?
I was just going with 1.8 as a placeholder until we get
Oh, I
everything that
see.
we need
Okay,
to.
that's US City average.
Yeah, finding out medical, what, the wage study, finishing, and some other things, so.
You know,
We would fix the wage study and then do the COLA.
And that is factored into that number of the 1.8%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's no steps for sworn officer matrix either.
So that's my other question, is we don't even have that calculated in because our 2.6 last year didn't include matrix moves. So that is another chunk of money that's coming out right out of that 2.6 for this coming year. So those are the kinds of things that I want in order to pick one of these blue and green boxes. So if you need a placeholder, then just use the minimum 1.8, and hopefully we can at least get there. If we, can get further, that's great. But at this point, the sworn officer matrix, the the new positions that we've had to hire mid-season, fixing the wage study, medical expenses. I mean, we're already sinking fast. So that's just my idea.
Bill?
I don't think we're sinking fast, I think we have to plan ahead. And, you know, it may sound simplistic, but I don't know which one of these COLA scenarios I would select at this point. I'm glad we have a range, and it seems to me, if I were doing budgeting, I'm not the budgeter you are, but I would almost look at the average of those things and see, okay, now let's do the analysis and we know which one we're going to land on, instead of picking one now, which tends, whether they like it or not, people become locked into. I don't want to do that. The situation is too fluid, and we don't know what's going to happen here, and we need to be on our toes on it. And with your help, we can be.
Well, but I think for starters, we have to put a stake in the ground. And you're right. We don't have to we don't have to focus or fixate on the stake, but I think to get started, put that in. I would go with the 1.8 just for starters. I don't think that's going to work. I think it's going to have to change, but to at least get you started, and so that we don't hold up the process. I know for myself, over the next week, I want to get together with you, Sylvia, Dorothy, Nancy, anybody, Michelle, anybody else involved, so that I have a thorough understanding of what it is we're faced with. But again, going back to the money that was raised last year, 2.6, 1.7 to the employees, and pretty much the bulk of the rest was medical, was the healthcare premiums, right? Because we had, what, 7%? I think it was 700,000 or 800,000 last year that we went up. So if you take the 1.7, add approximately 700,000, you're at 2.4. So between the raises and the healthcare premiums, we basically chewed up most of our taxing authority. So the question is, how are we going to handle that this year?
Right.
And I think that's obviously what Leslie's wrestling with. Well, we all are. Bill's, but at least to get you started, let's go with the 1.8.
Okay, we'll plug those numbers and we'll just roll with it.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's see if I have it. So we'll continue to do any kind of analysis that you want from us. And eventually we'll have to update our compensation policy to reflect, because right now it's very performance-based, and we do need to do some major adjustments to it, more representative of what we've been doing.
Right, and I still believe, if we adopt a matrix, I still believe that matrix has to be based on performance. I mean, they have to have a certain standard before they move up to their next step. And so that is, where the elected officials have all their discretion. So it's not, okay, you've been here 5 years, now this is how much you make. You've been here 5 years and you are performing at the 5-year level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if
sorry, go
you
ahead.
need, so doing the 81,000 and the 26,000, I guess it's 107, 430, 21, that would be finishing the wage study. So is that something that we can plug in right now too with the 1.8?
Yes.
Now, when you say completing the wage study, specifically, what does that mean?
So that means moving those individuals who were capped at 5% to where they should be, based on removing that restriction. So if someone only got 5% and they should have been at market, based on how we did the analysis last year, we would put them at market first.
That's
And then give them
81,000.
1.8.
Yeah, that's
And
81,412.
$412. So really putting them where they should have been.
Understood.
But we have financial constraints, and so we had to cap it. And then addressing the salary grades with tweaking those ranges a little bit, and that's 26,000.
So Leslie, you're recommending we give that direction to Dina?
Yes,
Are
yeah,
you
so
okay?
it's 107,430, just doing the 5% cap and the salary range fix.
Dina, you okay?
Sure, so we're
Got it.
opening the elected officials to market.
Yep.
Okay.
But we can apply the 1.8% to the elected officials.
That's fine.
Yeah, because that's still part of the cost of living that's across the board, yes.
I agree.
Okay. Are we okay then?
Yes.
Public comment? Hearing none, 11:05, meeting adjourned. Thank you.